What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel, and I hope you'll consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So, in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Amazon Prime original television series, The Boys, and why I think it might just be the perfect superhero show for those of us who may be suffering from superhero fatigue. And in case it's not obvious, this video will contain spoilers. So if for some reason you haven't seen this show yet and you're not trying to hear about anything that happens in it, you might want to exit the video right now. And with that being said, no more wasting time. Let's get into it. The Boys is an American satirical superhero television series developed by Eric Kripke for Amazon Prime Video. Based on the comic book of the same name by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson, it follows a team of vigilantes as they combat superpowered individuals who abuse their powers. The series features an ensemble cast that includes Carl Urban, Jack Quaid, Anthony Starr, Erin Moriarty, Dominique McElligott, Jesse T. Usher, Chase Crawford, Laz Alonso, Tomer Capone, Karen Fukihara, and Nathan Mitchell. Originally, the show was intended to be a feature-length film, and the comic book series adaptation began its development back in 2008 with Adam McKay set to direct the film. But due to creative differences between the crew and the studios that picked up the film, the project was left pretty much in development purgatory. Now, from what I understand, the development for the project was revived in 2016 by Cinemax, which even made an announcement that it would be reworked as a television series. And Kripke was recruited to be the showrunner of the series, while Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg would be the executive producers. But somehow, Amazon Studios obtained the rights for the series in November 2017, and production started in May of 2018 in Toronto. Now, the show premiered its first season of 8 episodes on July 26, 2019. A second season premiered on September 4th in 2020, with the third season following on June 3rd of 2022. Now, also in June 2022, the series was renewed for a fourth season, so we will be getting another installment of the series. As part of the shared universe, a spin-off series, The 7 on 7, premiered in July of 2021. I have not seen that yet. It's an animated anthology series, Diabolical, premiered in March of 2022. I haven't seen that either. And a second live-action television series called Gen V premiered in September of 2023. I'm watching that right now. But the series has received positive reviews and praise for its writing, storyline, humor, and the performances of the cast. The series was also nominated for 6 Emmy Awards, including Outstanding Drama Series in 2021. Now, the show currently has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes with a slightly less favorable audience score of 82%, but I mean, that's still really good. It has a Metascore of 77, and that's based off of 54 critic reviews on Metacritic, with a user score of 7.3 based on over 1,300 user ratings. And it has a more than respectable 8.7 out of 10 on IMDb, and that's based on almost 600,000 reviews. Now, I had been hearing from people for a while now that this show was more than worth the watch. But after 10 long years of taking in every second of every movie in the first 3 phases of the MCU, some better than others, honestly, I've been superheroed out. Now, that being the case, I have to admit, I've been low-key avoiding this show for quite some time. But now that I've actually watched the entirety of the first 3 seasons, I have to say, the show offers a refreshing change of pace for the superhero genre. Let's start with the obvious. This show is peak level superhero satire, or trolling, whatever you want to call it. I mean, taking on the subject of hero worship in a way that feels interesting and complex. I think that featuring superheroes that are not only clearly knockoffs of existing superheroes from DC and Marvel, and that are not only deeply flawed, but that in some cases don't even have the people they've sworn to protect's best interests at heart, offers a critique on the idea of hero worship in and of itself, which is something I found truly captivating. And that, along with pretty good writing, made binging the 3 seasons of this show a surprisingly painless endeavor. And speaking of the writing, this story is a pretty interesting one, focusing on a group of, in the series, mortal men who have all somehow been wronged by heroes that mostly belong to the Seven, which is a group of legendary superheroes owned and managed by Vought International, which is a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, again, that owns and manages these superheroes' careers. Basically, they're knockoff Avengers. To the point that they team up to exact revenge, ultimately vowing to destroy them. But over the course of the show's 3 seasons, we watch the members of this vigilante group, who also refer to themselves affectionately as the Boys, come to the realization that not all of the heroes are the same. Some of the vigilantes ally themselves with some of the heroes. Some of them befriend them, and some even fall in love with them, complicating not only their allegiance to their fellow vigilantes, but their pathway to what they each perceive as justice as well. Now, Billy the Butcher, played by Carl Urban, is the de facto leader of the Boys. Sponsored at least in part by the CIA, Billy tracks, records, and sometimes even liquidates supes, or superpowered individuals, that we find out over the course of the series were artificially created with the help of a scientific concoction known as Compound V by Vought International. Now, Billy's arch enemy is the Homelander, who is basically knockoff Superman, played by Anthony Starr from Banshee, who he blames for the sexual assault and death of his wife, Becky, a former Vought employee, while also developing an intense hatred for all superhuman beings. Now, Billy's sidekick, Wee Huey Campbell, another member of the Boys, played by Jack Quaid, and apparently the main protagonist of the series, if you go by the opening image of the first season, as well as the self-declared archenemy of A-Train, the supe who accidentally killed his girlfriend Robin at the beginning of the story. Now, he later meets and falls in love with, and eventually starts dating, Annie January, aka Starlight, while also becoming increasingly ruthless and savage under Billy the Butcher's influence as the series progresses. Now, Mother's Milk, or MM for short, played by Laz Alonso, is a military veteran with a pronounced dislike of Vought and its supes, all because of a car crash caused by Soldier Boy during his childhood. And that car crash killed his mother, uncle, and grandfather. And it ultimately led to his father working himself to death as a lawyer, unsuccessfully attempting to sue the company. Now, in the present storyline, MM joins Billy the Butcher and the reformed Boys in exposing the existence of Compound V and taking down Stormfront, formerly known as Liberty, played by Aya Cash, the supe that replaced Translucent as a member of the Seven after his murder at the hands of Huey. In the first and second seasons, while in the third season, which is set a couple of years later, a now divorced MM rejoins the Boys as they attempt to take down Victoria Newman and the Homelander, coming to odds with Butcher over his use of V24, which is the temporary version of Compound V, and his partnership with Soldier Boy. Now, Surge, otherwise known as the Frenchman or Frenchie, played by Tomer Capone, was recruited into the Boys by its original leader, Lieutenant Colonel Mallory, after being apprehended for a bank robbery and aggravated assault on a supe via weaponized Xanax. In his past, he suffered horrific abuse at the hands of his bipolar father, who once attempted to smother him with a Hello Kitty duvet, of all things. He also kidnapped him while evading the police and forced him to kneel in broken glass, all of which Frenchie attributes to his pathological need to follow others. And, last but not least, the female, often referred to as Kamiko Miyashiro in the television series, played by Karen Fukihara, is herself a soup, the only soup in the boys. And she joins the group after they find her trapped in a cage in a basement under high security early in the series, and they free her, mistaking her for a victim. Now, she and her brother Kenji grew up in Japan, where they were captured by the Shining Light Liberation Army after killing their parents. Now, the terrorist organization then experimented on them using Compound V to give her super strength and a healing factor that allows her to heal from fatal injuries in the process. Now, no doubt, due to the trauma of the experience, Kimiko stopped speaking and learned sign language along with her brother in order to communicate with him. Now, after Kenji's death, Kimiko teaches Frenchie to sign. And during season 3, she loses her powers after being injured by Soldier Boy, though she later regains them after she convinces Starlight to smuggle a dose of Compound V out of Vault Tower for her. Now, I thought the acting in this series was really good by the ensemble cast, with Anthony Starr being a real bright spot. And I gotta say, Homelander has got to be the douchiest superhero I've ever seen on screen. With Soldier Boy, who's essentially knockoff Captain America / Winter Soldier, being a close second. But Homelander probably also has the most complicated arc of all the suits. Born and raised in a lab with no mother, and ultimately finding out that his father is Soldier Boy, who everyone thought had died back in 1985, but who instead was given to the Russians by his own superhero team called Payback and put on ice. Sound familiar? But who has since been set free by the boys and who is now looking to exact revenge on all the members of Payback. Meanwhile, Homelander is looking for Ryan Butcher, the son he has with Billy's wife, Becky, who accidentally killed her when he became overly emotional, lasering her by mistake after Homeland finally tracked him down at a CIA safe house. Now, I also want to take the time to make the point that this show handles a lot of hot-button social issues, but it does so extremely well and with a really delicate hand so as to not make you feel like you're sitting through a lecture about harassment or assault or big media or big pharma or political corruption or police brutality or racial or gender equality. In fact, the only thing that was kind of off-putting to me about this series was the overuse and the explicit nature of the nudity throughout. Now, I'm all for a sex scene here or there, because I believe that sex is a natural part of the human experience. But some of the scenes were just so out there. I'm talking scenes including some really dark stuff. For example, there was a scene involving the soup Termite in season 3 that comes to mind, wherein at a party, Termite sneaks off to a private room to have sex with another man, and he shrinks down to the size of a termite and enters the other man's urethra. And they show this, by the way. But while he's inside the man's urethra, Termite accidentally sneezes, returning to full size, exploding the man from the inside out in the process. There were also other scenes involving the Deep having sexual intercourse with an octopus, which again, I just didn't think was necessary to put on screen. I also noticed that there were a lot of men that appeared fully nude throughout the series. In all their glory. But it looked like there was a concerted effort made to cover up the women, even during sex scenes, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, unless the scene clearly calls for the woman to be nude. And I understand that maybe women have been exploited in cinema more than men have historically, but in this, the day and age of equality, I just think that whatever you ask one gender to do, the other gender should be asked to do as well. But that's just me. All in all, I think the series has been absolutely fantastic so far. And I'm really looking forward to season 4, which, from what I understand, has already finished filming, but may be delayed because of the actor strike. But the show along with Gen V, has provided me with some superhero content that doesn't feel like all the juice has been squeezed out of it, or at least not yet. And speaking of superheroes, I thought most of the movies in the first three phases of the MCU were fairly good. But I haven't really watched anything since Endgame, mostly because I'm a diehard Iron Man guy, and now that he's gone, I've kind of lost interest. I mean, I'm sure I'll cover some MCU content for you guys here on the channel, but I don't watch the MCU with nearly as much personal interest as I used to. Besides, I don't know how you top Infinity War and Endgame from a narrative standpoint. I mean, Thanos coming to kill half of all life in the universe kind of feels like a climax to me. But in those films, even though the heroes were certainly portrayed as complex individuals, there was a clear line that was typically drawn identifying who the good guys were versus the bad ones. Here, there is no such line. In fact, the idea that the heroes that are seen as the best guys could, in reality, be the worst guys of all is what makes the show different than all of the shows and movies that came before it. And I know what some of you might be thinking. Zack Snyder's Watchmen is a pretty close comparison to The Boys, in that the heroes in it are presented as extremely complex individuals with superpowers who may not always have the well-being of society at large at the forefront of their minds. But I think the film gets too wrapped up in worshiping the very heroes it's meant to be critiquing. And then Damon Lindelof's Watchmen series on HBO, which, I'll admit, found a genuinely inspired way to move those flawed characters forward while remaining faithful to the spirit of the original material. But neither of those things is this one. A brilliantly written and well-executed show that unapologetically calls bullshit on the hero fantasy and implores viewers to take a more critical look at what it might mean to be a hero in the first place. But what do you guys think? Do you think that The Boys is simply superhero satire? Or do you think it stands alone as a searing critique on hero worship in modern society? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you who might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you really like the content, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. Also, be sure to go and check out themadScreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write, and I'll catch y'all on the next video.